Hey there, and welcome to season 3 of Pause and Rewind. I'm Neil, my pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of my podcast, which is very much created for everyone. As usual, I'll be chatting to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. We'll be diving into the moments, the realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now. Because everyone loves an origin story. We'll be talking tales, anecdotes, and a little of what makes our guests tick. This is an 8-episode season going out during Pride season. And Pride really is a celebration of the LGBTQ+ community, but it's first and foremost a protest. Showing up has never been more important, and what we're seeing right now is the fight is definitely not over. Each of these guests has an amazing story when it comes to doing their own thing and how they're showing up in the world. And I'm so excited to shine a spotlight on their stories. So, with that in mind, are you ready to pause and rewind? Oh, hey there. Welcome to another episode of Pause and Rewind. I hope that you're keeping well. I hope that Pride Month is going beautifully for you so far. And if, like many of us, you're not really feeling that in the mood to celebrate, I hope that you are able to tap into community and joy, whether that's big joy, big, loud, colourful, glittery joy, or some quiet moments to savour, whatever's working for you for right now. I hope you're able to sit back and relax and enjoy this conversation with someone that I have the privilege of knowing and working with and hanging out with on various occasions, and that's Tolu Osinubi. Tolu is a director at Deloitte. She's also a passionate public speaker and a fierce advocate and ally for the LGBTQ+ community. I've heard Tolu speak many times on her experiences of racism, her thoughts on intersectionality, and just have a lot of love, respect, and appreciation for Tolu. But it's great to sit down and dive into this conversation with her. We chat all about her a big shift in her life when she moved from Lagos to Bury in Greater Manchester. And all the things that came with that. We talk about her relationship with her parents, coming out, and we also bond over a shared experience of burnout and how that has shaped Tolu and her journey into DEI. Lots to take away from this conversation. Please do take care of yourself whilst listening. We do cover some really challenging topics, particularly around Tolu's upbringing, but there's some great moments in here. Really love hearing Tolu talk about her recent travel adventures too. So let me know what you think. Enjoy. Let's get into it. Hey there, Tolu. It is great to see you. Welcome to Pause and Rewind.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be with you.
I am so excited to dive into your origin story, Tolu. And I'm going to start with the question I ask all my guests. What does the world look like for Tolu Osinubi right now?
Well, it's definitely hectic. I would say hectic is the dominant theme. That there feels like there's so much happening in terms of the everyday, but so much that perhaps is unprecedented, perhaps. So I think for me, I find that what I'm really seeing at the moment is just this feeling of it feels it just feels pointless around making a very long-term plan and just operating in the moment and being more present in what is happening day to day. And I think what that really does help in terms of contextualizing some of the challenges you might hit in the everyday, but also in terms of, work and some of the things that happen that feel like such a huge deal, but then you contextualize it in terms of everything else that's going on in the world. So I think it really helps to really try and be more in the moment. And I think that's something that I am trying to do more actively day by day.
I guess that's, that can be true for so many of us that are working in the inclusion space, right? When you're balancing so much, your day job, your gay job, your community kind of like obligations, passion. How do you manage to stay in the moment?
Mm. And you've characterized it so well with the many plates that are spinning or the many roles that you support. And I also think there's also the part of you that is your just being yourself and
Yes.
having your own everyday life as well in there. That although it's not a role, but part of the thinking about all the aspects to yourself that
Yeah.
you want to give space to. And I think for myself, how I have focused on this idea of how to be present is I've really come to this acceptance over, I would say, over sort of the last few years, where I know there is no way I can do everything. Absolutely not. I can't do everything that I would like to, and I wouldn't be able to give it the right amount of focus that I would like to give it. So what I think keeps me present, and when I think about how to remain present, is I know that if that's what I'm trying to aim for, or if that's what I'm trying to strive for, it doesn't make any sense, but also it's just that something that is putting too much on you, and it is more that what is in front of me now that I want to give my focus and my energy that is important. And so that might be an individual in front of me in terms of the conversation, or it might be having in the context of work or someone in my team, or it might be I've got to get a deadline over over the line in a very short period of time. Whatever that is, it is okay, this is what's in front of me. I'll make sure I look at this and just be as present as I can be, but then also thinking about some of the things as they do hit, or some of those perhaps distractions or things you don't expect. It's a case of it's okay to say to someone, I can't do this at the moment. Whether it's not necessarily a no, it's a I'd love to pick this up, but actually let's talk in a couple of weeks about this, or I'd really like to engage with this, but I've just got no space for this right now. Let's chat again in a few weeks, and I'll let you know. I think that's been really refreshing for me around how I say continue to remain present, but also in terms of just creating more capacity for yourself as an individual, because it's not necessarily that you won't focus on those things or they're not important. It's just more that you're creating a bit more space in the moment now so that you can look at those things maybe further down the line, and I would say have more capacity to look at them, or perhaps you might have a better perspective or a slightly different perspective because you've given yourself a bit more space.
Yeah. Is that something that you've had to learn the hard way over the years?
I'd say definitely the hard way over the years. I think something that was a really important and a really significant moment for me was it was 2022. Yes, yeah, about May 22. I ended up taking some time out of work. I had 4 months out of work actually, and it was all surrounding my health, and I had some really difficult health challenges. I had it was fibroid, so that's something that is a continued challenge for me. But it was also quite exasperated by stress. And I
Hmm.
think that at that period of time, I was definitely thinking about all the things, sort of work life, gay jobs, all of those things were at a peak, and it really did hit, and it was really impacting my health in a really significant way. So I think one of the moments I always reflect back on and think about was it was probably the last Friday I'd be at work, and I said to myself, uh, I need to get all these things handed over. Let's do all these things, but give myself a bit. In theory, I was thinking I'll have enough time, but I felt very pressed for time in the end. But it was the Friday, and I was having the surgery on the Monday, and I was still doing all these different types. It doesn't really matter what they are, but I was still doing all these things. And I think one of the things that I ended up reflecting back on, because when I had the surgery, I actually I had quite a lot of complications, and I really lost. It was something in my notes. I lost 2 liters of blood, so it was quite
Wow.
a difficult recovery as well. But then thinking, being in hospital, and also now reflecting back on myself in hospital, think about the energy that I needed to recover. I was like, I definitely could have done with that rather than the focus that I was giving at the time, but also the real importance of me when I look back and I thought that, actually, I just thought, what was I doing? What was I doing?
Yeah.
That what I should absolutely have been doing in that period running up to it was just looking at how I looked after myself and got myself as well. Can never be 100% ready, but just being more focused on what I needed, sort of health wise, and what I needed to support me through the surgery and the eventual recovery. So I think that was a real moment for me. And I think when I think about times now where I get very full of activity, very busy, very and maybe stretched, I would say, rather than thinking about the stress levels, is actually checking in with myself about that moment and feeling those feelings I felt being, in hospital, and also reflecting on how I felt at the time, um, and just thinking that I'd never want to get to that point again.
Yeah. I
Mm.
hear you. I hear you. Having experienced burnout, I now know that I never want to go back there.
Mm.
Yeah. Has it sounds like it's massively shaped you in terms of kind of your self-care and your own boundaries. Has it impacted how you are in your role with other people as well? I mean, director at Deloitte, right? Really
Mm.
demanding role as well as all the other things. Has it changed maybe the way that you look out for other people, but also
Mm.
the compassion and the understanding towards other people when they're going through stuff?
Yes, I absolutely think it has, because I think in terms of my own personal reflections, it was a don't ever do that again.
Mm.
But then also with other people, I think it's so important to share what happens and be honest and say, because I know the way I think about the actions I took, I wasn't supporting myself in those moments and saying that don't do this, because
Yeah.
it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And also, I think that to me, that's a really important part of perhaps I'd certainly say what I took away from it and what I do with that particular experience. It is an opportunity just to say to people that I understand what it feels like to want to do all these things, and you're 100% capable of doing those things, but it's not necessary, and
Yeah.
that's the part I think I definitely use with my own stories, but also when I'm talking, I think when I'm talking to, whether it's in my own company or because I do a lot of other speaking gigs with other organizations, I think it's really important to share that, because there is a real at times a really unfortunate focus of this. Everybody's chasing to be doing the most, or achieving, I say in quotes, achieving and progressing, but it's almost this point that doesn't really exist, because as soon as you get to a one stage, then there's already another level to be thinking about. Or if you get to the most, I guess if you get to I think a really interesting reflection I have was perhaps speaking to uh, a partner at work, and they talked about their journey of getting there. And so, well, actually, once you get there, you're actually a junior partner. So then it's almost like you start that process again.
Yeah.
So there's definitely this element of really, really being aware of contextualizing what those things are. And I think something that's been a really big, if I think about my own personal journey around therapy as well, with some of those things, is maybe contextualizing this idea of, if you're trying to achieve this thing that doesn't necessarily, well, to be honest, that doesn't really exist. It's just a step after another one, after another one, after another one, that perhaps it's trying to distract from a bigger challenge, or a bigger piece of trauma, perhaps, that you really need to give your energy to, or perhaps have more capacity to give some time to. So I think that's been a really important part of it for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of questions around how sustainable this working at that level is.
Mm.
and standards that society sets on us in terms of that achieving, you said, because we see in where we are in DEI, we see all these people achieving to like get the next steps, the next gig, to doing this. But how much scrambling is going on in the background, and how healthy is that? But I love what you're saying, because you're role modeling. You're role modeling so much here around boundaries and mental health and vulnerability. And that's really does speak to you and how you show up in the community.
And I think for me, it's so important, and also just knowing that, uh, and I think for me it's been it's been a journey. I know we're going to talk about origin stories soon, but when I think about myself, so I'm talking about many years ago, and feeling those feelings of feeling like I don't fit anywhere. I feel very lost, and I'm looking for somewhere to almost tether to kind of reflect to where I am now, and my feelings of. So I'm a Taurus sun, so quite a fixed personality. I think I like structure. I like my organization, but I also think probably change is a bit of a challenge because I like my home comforts and those kind of things. But also that feeling of having that grounding, whether that's talking in the concept and in the lens of identity, or just your personhood, or even if it's thinking about career or whatever you want to frame it as. I think a really important part of my own journey around feeling that is not necessarily necessarily framing your I think the feeling of being grounded too, it sits in an achievement, or it sits in, I would even say, an individual, or it sits in a destination of some sort. It actually all sits within you, and you already have all of those things you need, or I already had those things I needed, but I needed to spend some time going on the journey to realize that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, because I think that sometimes we have this vision that there is a set destination, but it's not. There isn't, is there? It's just all one big journey.
No, absolutely, and I think it's that piece on that it is one big journey, but having a bit more time to appreciate the moments in the journey, and it can be perhaps it can be difficult moments, but just kind of the appreciation of the moments in the journey are really, I think, are really super important.
Yeah. It's been wonderful seeing you this year grab hold of that joy, on top of all the amazing things that you do with Deloitte, and you're speaking, your love of travel, for example, and like the joy that emanates from those photos that you share.
Yes, yes, I had the most. I honestly, I'd say lots of recommendations, but I recommend. So I went to South Africa earlier this year, and actually really had a great time going to Costa Rica. Was a beautiful place as well. But focusing on South Africa, I think that what I loved about going. So I was born in Lagos, and I had never been to another African country, maybe pass through, when you land somewhere, but so not really experiencing it. So I think it was that part of it, as I really wanted to experience another part of Africa and another African country. But I also really there was lots about South Africa as a young person, in terms of the history that I'd read about and felt really sort of connected with around this thinking about change, and how we actually actualize change in a system. That's been so definitely somewhere that really resonated. But just going to South Africa, and just some of the things, I spent some time in Johannesburg and Durban, that I think about. In Johannesburg, some of the reflections me and my partner had were just, it was so beautiful to see everybody. Well, see, the weather's much better, but also I think something you said is, isn't it just, it's lovely to see loads of amazing. So I was saying the landscape was beautiful, but just amazing to see like Black people having a lovely time, and just just seeing loads of joy, and it's just in the everyday. It's not necessarily connected to a specific moment, or we're trying to create something. It's a in the everyday that just having a really lovely, beautiful time and enjoying their lives and doing things for themselves, which I just was like, this is beautiful. I love it. And also, I got really into, I would say, South African soaps because I love the fact that in all the programs I remember watching that you usually had a queer character, which I thought was awesome, but also just in terms of the way, because there's 12 languages in South Africa. So on TV, you always had perhaps in those soaps, people would be speaking multiple languages and they would be interacting with each other. Might start in English and someone replies in isiZulu, then someone else comes back in Sotho, someone else comes back in another language. And I thought that was such, like, this is so beautiful, and it's just, it's part of, it's very much part of the culture. And I love seeing that, because I thought to myself that I can't really think of a comparison like that in the context of living in the UK. And that, to me, if I think about some of the things that resonate, and the Stones were super drama, love it. But I really loved that aspect of it, that you could really see the culture was just, when you talk about being embedded, it was really just part of every fabric, and just having that the queer representation, feeling like just part of the fabric as well. I thought was really interesting, and I must say I didn't necessarily expect it either. Um, and it was a huge privilege to get to go on safari as well. Had the best time. Very early starts, 4 a.m. starts.
Well, hey.
Yeah, so that was, yeah, because quite a bit, but really thought, because I think as well for me, I love lions, lionesses the most. But I was really keen to see a lion, and was very fortunate to see all of the big five, and we saw some cheetahs as well. And one of the things about that particular one I thought was that was really cool is, when your guides themselves are really excited about
Mm,
something that you think, wow, this must be, obviously this feels amazing, but you're like, this must actually be really, really amazing, that they're so excited as well as the guides who are sort of doing this every day. So I think that felt really special,
yeah.
for sure. And yeah, also getting to visit, I think some of the things I said around thinking about the history, particularly around change and the history of apartheid there, I think was really important as well, for myself, being there. But I'd say I loved it, but also if I think about the reason why that trip happened, and sort of where it happened, was this idea of creating a bit of space so that I could have a slower start to the year, because I recognised that I needed it, but also it was this recognition of, it doesn't matter whether you start the I could start the year on January the 1st, or the 2nd, whatever, but it doesn't actually matter when you start the year. It's when you need to make sure that you feel, you have the things you need to, plug back into, work, and even I think seeing people, all of those kinds of
Yeah.
things as well. And I think that was a really important part of the whole trip. And I love travel. I think it really excites me. I think we're already talking about what we can do next. And I feel very, when you think, I feel very fortunate to be able to have those experiences, but also really get to experience South Africa in that way as well.
Yeah. It sounds like such a beautiful all-round trip in terms of
Mm.
everything that it brought you and stuff. And I love you talking about the representation and what that meant to you in those moments. Because I think, as queer kids growing up in the UK, I'm a bit older than you, but representation pretty lacking, right? We're going back a few decades, and particularly when you think about queer people and queer black people, just really not there. And what representation was, so little, so skewed, so one tracked. So it's
Mm.
beautiful to hear that. And again, I wouldn't necessarily expect it.
Yeah, and that was the part for me. But then it also was it was great, as you were saying, seeing it was absolutely beautiful. But also, you do always take the reflection of, wouldn't it have been great to be
Yeah,
able to see it in your own perhaps childhood or in your own journey. But I guess for me, it just fills me with the in a very incredibly challenging world with so many other things, that those I think those little moments are so important. But also, it's important to recognize those things that are there, because I think otherwise you perhaps lose the opportunity to. I think sometimes I describe them as maybe some tiny moments of magic that happen along the way amongst the challenges.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. There is hope, and there is joy, and we're seeing it now. And I love seeing yours and Adelaide's pics together. They're, you gorgeous couple. Tolu, we're gonna jump into your origin story now. Are you ready to pause and rewind?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Here we go. Let's do this. Take me back. Tell me all about little Tolu.
Oh, got to take a deep breath about this one. So if I think about little Tolu, so I was born in Lagos in Nigeria. I moved over to the UK when I was 5 years old. And it's like, do I want to age myself? Well, so many years ago, I moved over. What I think is really part of my journey as a young person is the experience of moving from, I guess, your country of origin, when we talk about our origin stories, to a new place, and that new place was Greater Manchester in Bury. So I'd say moving over from, I'd say, Lagos, with, I'd just say, hustle and bustle and lots going on, to, I'd say, uh, very Greater Manchester so it was with my mum I moved over, but my dad had been working over here training to be a doctor. So the experience itself, I remember, though I was very young, but just being just so wowed by. So a couple of things of, I had my own bedroom, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. And I was really, really so happy about that. But I'm an only at the time, I was an only child, but I've got a sister who is 21, so I'm about 14 years older than her. Um, so at the time, I remember just being so wowed by that. And there's a memory I have as well of, there was this probably cerise coloured is the best way to put it, dressing gown that had been bought for me by my dad as well. And I was like, wow, I've got my own room. I've got this dressing gown. Like, wow, this place is going to be so cool. There's so much here. And it was kind of just getting your head around all of those experiences. So I remember been really like lots of new things. And but also then going to school, hitting a lot of friction around being an outsider and being othered by, well, being in, Bury in Greater Manchester in the early 90s is, it's a very different place to where we are now. And I think one of the things that really I reflect back on is not realizing you were experiencing, racism. So, for example, because being like, my parents said I shouldn't play with you, and being like, well, okay, I guess because you've told me, but then not really being able to understand and properly contextualize those experiences. But even if I think about stuff around teachers as well, that just some of the I remember a particular experience. It was to do with like knives and forks and being like told off because I wasn't using, well, at home I didn't use a knife and fork all the time, and I don't even use a knife and fork all the time now, to be honest.
Same,
Yeah,
same. If I can
like,
avoid it.
yeah, but it was a really big problem, and kind of indicated like um a almost like a not progressing in line
Mm.
with everybody else. So I remember just trying to really just understanding and being like, I don't really, just confused and not
Yeah.
really getting these things. But I think reflecting on those experiences as an adult, see, I can better contextualize that. But it's for me interesting thinking about your experiencing racism, but actually not realizing and just still trying to navigate the world as a child or navigate those school experiences without actually realizing what you're
Yeah.
experiencing. But then I think it became quite apparent, also getting a bit older, being aware of the fact that you were in terms of origin, I'm a Black West African and Nigerian, so people making it really clear that you were different to them, and unfortunately, people being using racial slurs and things like that. So I think growing up, that was very much part of my experience and understanding that you were different
Mm.
from everybody. But actually, even at home, you got the same, I'd say, interestingly, you got the same conversation of you are different. So my parents, being, they would have been first generation migrants settling into the UK, were saying that you will, so being a bit older, you will experience racism. So they're telling you this. So see, I'm hearing it, I'm understanding it, I'm processing
Mm.
it. But then also along with that comes the you will need to work, was it twice as hard, or you will need to do these things um because that's just almost how it is. And it's not yes, these things are wrong, but that's how your experience will be. So it was very interesting when I think about my reflections on it. It's actually coming from both sides, that know that you're an outsider, so to
Yeah.
speak. And one of the I think one of the things that I think about as well, being a little I say little Tolly, I was very aware of that, and then obviously as I as I progressed more, I was I was very aware of the fact that those experiences were unique to being West African. Also, because why I say unique to being West African is, so there's the working twice. Parents might say might be working twice as hard, but because there is a big focus around education and achieving, there was on top of that, it was like, yeah, you need to that you might have to work twice as hard because you're experiencing racism, but you're a Nigerian. Nigerians excel at education. You're going to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, or you'll be a family failure. Is the other option.
Whoosh.
So it's pretty. So it also, having that on top of it, was there was a lot of pressure and focus
Mm.
around academics, education. I don't know, a quite common joke that might be said was, say you got back and you got the second highest mark, that there might be a comment around, well, how come you didn't get the highest mark, or that what's the difference between you and that person. And sometimes a quote that said is, oh, did they have two heads or something, like what's the difference, you should be able to achieve
Yeah.
the very top. So I think those things were very much part of, I'd say, as little Tolu, the things that I was very much aware of, being like, education is very, very important. I've got to be one of these professions, otherwise I won't be making my family, happy or
Yeah.
proud. And then there was also, I think, starting to navigate through school as well, feeling quite, I would say, around my journey around my own identity as a queer person. It wouldn't necessarily say it started as early as in my being at school, because there was so much focus on education, and also adding the lens of being from a quite a Nigerian household. It was very, very Christian, but also
Mm.
very, I would say, very actively talked about. When we talk about sins, sins are, um, homosexuality is also grouped in all the sins that you could
Yeah.
possibly have. So it just wasn't a topic in the household, and it wasn't something I really I would say was on my radar around exploring my identity or exploring anything really about myself until I moved out of home. And I would say as well that when I think about my own childhood, which was, coming over from there, some of the experiences coming over from Nigeria and some of the experiences I talked about. But then I also had a really challenging circumstances at home where I really was, I think, certainly dealing with, I'd say, emotional abuse from a parent, and also definitely at times physical abuse. So it was very much a very difficult, I'd say, childhood for me as little Tolu was.
Yeah.
So it was incredibly difficult, but also I think there was this, if I think about reflecting on some of the things I thought at that time was, it definitely will get better. It will get better because you'll be, I don't know, away from, you'll be able to escape the situation. And almost, I think I had a feeling within myself of, even at the time I said, you will be able to, you will be able to escape it, which I think is really interesting, because if I think about how old I would have been about then, probably like 12, 13
Yeah.
years old, and having the feelings of, I'll be able to do this is quite, perhaps punchy, you might
Yeah.
say, or just
Yeah.
having that space to think in that way. I think really was, I think, certainly part of what kind of made me feel that I could get through it, but also there were other sort of adults in that space who were able to support me.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
one of the things I also think about when I talk about growing up is when I think about school, because so one of my best friends, who I still we are still super super close, and was living with me up until a few months ago. Um, we both met at the age of 11 at school, and when I think about us, then school was a very different, I'd say, different experience to what it would be like now, I'm sure, because there was a lot of bullying, homophobic bullying, but also just there was a lot of lack of understanding around things like ethnicity and identities, and also around being an LGBTQ plus young person. And I think what I think about, actually a lot of what we reflected on is just thinking about the fact that we gravitated to each other, because I think we may not at the time, but perhaps as we got older, been able to put language to it. But there was something that brought us together that
Yeah.
we could really identify in each other. That was almost a bit of like, oh, I feel a little bit like an outsider, but you totally get this. That you totally get this thing about feeling like an outsider. Shall we hang? Okay, cool. Sounds really good. So I think that certainly that friendship was a really strong part of my
Mm.
experience around sort of little Tolly, but also, even I say, to the present day, are really important. When I talk about support systems, I have been
Yeah.
a really strong support system for sure. So I
Yeah.
think that childhood was incredibly challenging, but also if I think about what I thought for myself. I wouldn't say, if you ask me why did I think that, I probably would struggle to answer why, but there was definitely a feeling of, it's almost that you just got to get to the other side of this, or
Yeah.
there is another side to this. Yeah.
And that's that. I mean, beautiful that you had that relationship to get you through, and
Mm,
sounds like other support, and this self-determination and resilience
mm.
as well. And we see so much of both of those things in you now, right? Your love of community, your love of your support system, and I
Yeah.
know you have a beautiful network of people around you. But also your resilience really shines through. I've heard you speak many times around your experiences around racism, intersectionality.
Mm,
So none of that comes as a surprise, as those are the things that got you through. Have you
mm.
been able to shake off some of those pressure? I imagine it's taken a lot of work.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think when I think about the process of shaking off, or where it really started, was probably university. Because
Mm.
when I got to university, I was at university in Sheffield, had the best time, great place.
It's a great place.
Yeah, and I think for the first time, I met so many, I said, people who were not like me, I would say, and also I really kind of got to start from a blank page of people just kind of wanting to know you,
Mm.
or
You.
as weird as it sounds, for me and nothing
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And that probably up until that point wasn't an experience, apart from perhaps I'd say my friendship
Yeah.
with my friend that I had, because usually there's some sort of, maybe there's a bit of a transactional feeling about it, because usually there's something attached to it, or someone wants something from you, or you have to give some part of yourself for someone. So it was very much a case of, oh, this is about people just want to get to know me, and also I can try all these new things that I've
Yeah.
not done before. So I started playing rugby at uni. Um, I played a bit of football, but also I think the community organizer kind of feeling started from that, because I was taking on roles of responsibility in, like, sports committees. I chaired our sports committee at the University of Sheffield at one point. Um, so I think even when I think about some of those earlier times, that probably there I didn't necessarily, and I probably didn't get to the point of understanding the community connection, but just that thing of bringing people together for a kind of common purpose, and doing that was something that was a really strong theme. But also playing football and rugby, I made some amazing friends, um, who were just, as you said, it's about being who you are. And I think actually I started to really question, what does that mean? What
Mm.
who am I? Because I hadn't really had the space to do that, and being able to do that for the first time, it was freeing in one way, but also it was terrifying, because I then had all these questions around all these things that I had that were very, very, I would say, defined answers. For example, the only thing you would be straight. The only path around, if I think about it, the only path would be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And I forgot to say that in terms of going to university, I had applied to go to med school, but I missed out on one of the grades. So I didn't get into that med school, but I got into my biomedical sciences course, which was
Yeah.
somewhere else. So actually, I then had this real thing of all these things that I was meant, or you're told that you've got to do. It's like these things, well, it didn't actually happen. And then actually, nothing's happened to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
The world
totally
hasn't come crashing
yeah,
down, kind of thing. Yeah.
I'm actually much better for it. I'm enjoying I'm enjoying myself here.
What was going on in the background at home while this,
Yeah,
this new sense of freedom and
yeah,
discovery and the world not falling apart? What was going on with your home relationships? Because you
mm,
shared, something quite
mm,
personal there
yeah,
about, emotional abuse, physical
mm,
abuse. It's horrendous. Having,
mm,
I've been there.
mm,
It's hard to
mm,
work through a relationship with a
mm,
parent or parents when that has
mm.
been the case. What was going on in the background where they might have been seeing this new Tolu,
Yeah.
this whatever you want to call it, this new discovery of yourself? How was that? How what was the reaction to that like?
Well, so the reaction was, well, we're gonna have to call the pastor here, because
Right.
clearly, well, there's some strong prayers needed. Sorry, saying that in jest, but I think
Yeah, of course.
the res- but actually the pastor was called, I must say. But the I think the response that for them were and I think being able to reflect more was they're responding in the only way they know how, because
Mm,
they have these absolute truths which are immovable, and here I am on the other side, just being like, "What are you talking about? This is what's going on here. This is what I'm doing here." And they got wind that I'd gone down to Pride in London, and They were like, what are you doing? That this is what the Bible says, and so on, because that was the only way. And
Yeah.
I would say, to be honest, to the present day, is the only way they know how to respond, because that is, when you have, I think, absolute truths in those ways, which
Mm.
are grounded in perhaps organized religion, or perhaps, I'd say, it's not even just religion, perhaps an individual that you root your absolute truths to. It means that you can't have any room to shift or change or kind of open your perspective. So I think that I certainly experienced a lot of friction, and also it created a lot of distance in those relationships. So
Yeah.
I don't have a relationship with my dad, but I'd say my mum at the time, who I was, still seeing and continuing to see, was really struggling, because there was the, I love you, you're my child, but to use her words, must save you from hell. So
Yeah.
how do
Yeah.
you balance those two things,
Yeah.
which must be quite the struggle, for
It's
sure.
yeah, for her, but also for you. And you spoke very early in the beginning of this podcast around belonging and not always having that sense of
Mm,
belonging. How much of this experience of that dissonance and
mm,
that pull
mm.
do you think has shaped your career in DEI when it comes to meeting
Yeah,
people where they are and bringing them
yeah.
along and using your influence and your understanding? How much has that shaped you now?
I think so fundamentally, because I think that if I think about my where I meet people where they are, is that I think I know what it's like to feel like there is no one else, even though actually I think more than anything it might be it's not that there isn't anyone else. It's perhaps the people that you might be rooting those expectations on, that you find your community elsewhere, in terms of chosen
Mm.
family, those sorts of things. But
Yeah, of course.
anyway, I think for me, it was that feeling of, I know what it feels like, actually, from being very little to being an adult, to not feel like you fit in, or people telling you don't fit. So it really does shape the way, I think, certainly around the importance I feel around telling my own story, which was 100% why I wanted to do this with you, but also helping kind of connect into this idea of these stories, or these things that you have experienced, a can be one of the things that can catalyze change, because you understand kind of why things need to change,
Yeah.
but also that not just the why, and maybe not just the why, because obviously the why is important, but you also have I feel like the spark of you of for me anyway, it is I won't have and I absolutely say I won't have what it feels that there's discrimination, exclusion of
Yeah.
people. It's just it's not happening on my watch.
No, oh, I love that. There's so much power in that, right? It was a good few months ago now. I asked Saskia a question
Mm,
around who, and a lesson that she's learned along the way that shaped her the most.
mm,
And she actually said the people that had done her wrong, the
mm,
people that had literally caused
mm,
problems. And I think that's exactly what you're
yeah,
saying right now, is the fact that we are shaped by our negative experiences as much as our
mm.
positive ones, and they can inform so much about us. And I know I'm exactly the same as you. It's given me the boundaries of what I will and won't accept and how I navigate the world.
Massively. No, massively. And I think it's also kind of shaped the piece around how I want to show up
Mm,
for people in that in when we talk about in the DEI space, because I think whatever you experience, I think that when I think about my own journey, and I talk about some of the unlearning that's happened, but the unlearning is, so I think it's so led when I talk about the unlearning, from some of the experience I've described, is that what is this idea of, it might have been the narrative of your whole life that you have all, your identities are weaknesses, but for me, that it was flipping that narrative to say these identities or these things about me are my greatest strengths because they've shaped me, as we talked about. But also, one of the things I talk about around why I'm building diverse teams, or I don't want groupthink, is because you're going to bring a perspective that most likely no one else will, or you will say the thing that no one else will, because that's been your experience, because you've had to be the one to say the thing that no one else will. So I think that for me, that's been a very strong part of my own journey, and also why I think when I look at how I'm sort of navigating the DEI space, why I navigate it in the way I do, because I think it is it's so super important. Yeah, it is. It's
Yeah.
so super important.
Yeah, that we're able to harness those experiences for good, because otherwise, what are you going to do with them?
Yeah, that's a yeah. What Well, I would also say actually something I feel is important to recognize, that if you go through some really difficult personal challenges, or you experience some really difficult discrimination, and you manage to get the other side, but you feel like actually what I want to do is just navigate the world, and I don't want to use the word survive, but just keep living your life as you. Because I feel like I don't want to think, oh, survive, you've got to thrive, not that. But it's just more that if you just want to say that I'm just keep living as the human that I am, and that's all that's there for me. And I think that's a really, really important part too, because if that's your journey, that's your journey. And I would equally celebrate that just as much as we celebrate, someone, when we talk about the change champions who are
Yeah.
driving, I don't know, 1,000,001 initiatives, because I think even you turning up as who you are and living your life as the human you are is an important act of resistance in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Those exact words were running through
Yeah.
my head when you said that. So powerful and so important. We don't have to be achieving 100% of the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's really coming through from your story is you're choosing to live. You made that choice and you are living your authentic life. And it's beautiful to see. I love that. Thank you. That's such a powerful message. I want to know off the back of all this then, what was the moment that you found that voice and destination in inclusion?
Yeah. I think probably, if I think about, I'm talking about maybe is it 8 years ago-ish now? Trying to remember that. I remember being at work and feeling very, I think I felt very overwhelmed by this feeling of, I don't think I do any good at all. And what I meant by that was I just felt very that everything about work just consisted of perhaps my my perhaps 9 to 5, but also I didn't get the opportunity to have community or interact with people, because work was just, as in the activities I did around my job, which that's all it was. And I was like, surely this can't be it. This can't be it in terms of what I want. But then also I remember being quite aware of the fact that there's so many things I look around me that should change, but that's where the thought ended. And I think those two thoughts at one point really came together in a conversation, which was with the person who led the LGBTQ plus network at the time, because I remember sharing my challenges around just feeling quite not included in the LGBTQ plus community space, because it was very cis, very white, and very male, to be honest. So um, that conversation really changed things, because I had those things rumbling around, and I say they're a wonderful, wonderful human, and they were like, "Oh, you can do whatever you want. Just tell me what it is that you want to do, and you can do it." And I was like, well, really? What do you mean? It's like, well, you said these things need to change. It's like, and I think that I personally wasn't expecting, I don't know why I wasn't expecting the level of openness, but that's not the response I was necessarily expecting. So I think the openness and also just the blank sheet of paper to be like,
Yeah.
what needs to change? And that kind of materialized in a let's create a new role which focuses on intersectionality. Let's put intentionality around collaborating with community sort of in our organization and externally. Let's do I'm using my own language for this now, but I think at the time that wasn't the language I had. I was like, well, I just kind of want to do I want us to collaborate with more networks more. I don't see why we can't do that. I think it was more what I said at the time. Why can't we do more things together? But what that really did shape for me was there is space for these things that you want to do, but actually also there isn't. And for me at the time, that without bringing those things to the table, I wouldn't be aware whether there would be any resistance or not. And perhaps not doing that until that point might have been a reason why I didn't get the opportunity to engage sooner. But also, there's something around. I think that we all have something where there is, it's timing, and that perhaps that was the right time to
Yeah.
really to have all those things come together in the way it needed to for me.
Yeah, yeah. Also, still seeing little elements of little Tolu coming through. You knew that you just took one conversation and you knew that you could do it. And look now. It's amazing.
No,
Brilliant.
thank you. And actually, there was something, and I was thinking about it for this. It was a reflection around something. Actually, it was something that Shar Bailey had posted ages and ages ago. But the quote was something like, "You've grown up, or you've grown into someone who would have protected you as a child, and that is the most powerful move you've made." And I think for me, on that point where you say little bits of little Tolly showing up, I think for me that feels if people are like, what's the most amazing achievement? Or to me, that is what it is for me.
Yeah, yeah. And it's beautiful. You can look back, it's very drag race, isn't it? To like think about what you'd say to your younger self. But we need to do that more. We need to
Yeah.
we need to look at how far we've come and say to that, but you're going to be okay.
Mm.
Like, yeah. Talk to me about someone who shaped you the most along the way.
Oh, someone that shaped me the most along the way. I think that actually, if I'm going to be cheeky and pick two. When I think about my younger self, it was a teacher. They were a geography teacher, and I, if I think about myself at that point, it was just very lost and just trying to figure out the world and really struggling. But I really, I was really struck by their kindness and also their ability to really understand uh, just a real empathy around what you're going through, but also actually to be able to understand you without you saying very much. And I thought that that was such a, even as a young person, I thought this is an amazing skill that I haven't said very much, but you seem to understand. does that make sense? And I think that really was something. Well, it's always stayed with me, but also seeing that teacher as well, particularly how they would do that consistently over and over again for many young people. Um, that it resonated with me, but it was an important thing that sat with me of wow, that you can really you can meet these people, but you can really have this skill or have this part of you where people don't need to say anything, but
Mm,
you really can have that empathy, but you have that presence about you that people just lean in, or people just know that there is safety,
yeah.
which I think that was a really huge one for me. And if I think about the second person I would talk about, but this is probably more in the last few years, that in terms of shaping, I think about John Amici. I think I talk about John Amici a lot, but why I say that particularly is when I think about his own journey, and I think also his story is incredibly powerful. But being able to, come out at a time where it really was, very extremely difficult, but also the way the way that he the way that he engages in DEI with the corporate space. So, for example, when I think about one of the most fundamental lessons that I think about as in my own leadership is around what it really means to be a leader. And he characterizes it very simply as it's about keeping your promises to your, whether it's your team, your clients, your whoever is in front of you. Actually, it doesn't really matter. But that is the mark of true leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible human. Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. My final question for this segment
Mm.
is looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
Hmm. It's a tough one. In terms of what I feel most proud of, I think that when I look back on I think I'll reference when I described the moment of burnout and really hitting rock bottom, and also really challenging health circumstances, um, to sort of where I am now in terms of my own boundaries or looking after myself, advocating for myself. To me, that is so significant because there's an element of perhaps the aspects of my own, I'll describe it as, my own, seeing my own value in my own personhood has grown to this point, and also seeing my own importance of my own health, whether that we're talking about physically or mentally, or emotionally, spiritually, all of those aspects. That for me, it's a case of being able to put those things front and center of everything I do feels hugely significant, and hugely to me is what I think about. Because actually, yes, there are some amazing personal and career milestones which are wonderful things for sure, but I think that having me here at this point, being able to see that part of me is just hugely important to me, and I think I'm super proud of.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious, or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day raid, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums, and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Oh yes, quick fire.
Here we go. What album, book, or movie has had a lasting impact on you?
I think for me, it certainly is. It's a film, but it's an old film, and it's not a British film. It was there's a whole section of say Nigerian film, Nollywood. And it's a Yoruba title, but the film itself was really around. So I remember watching it when I was a lot younger and actually just moving over to the UK. So a lot of it was around transition and change, but also it was talking about the journey of a young person, feeling the confidence to, transition into all these different life stages. But why I say it's particularly significant for me is when I think about that period of time for me, there was a lot going on, but also there was just some things where you say you definitely anchor to. I describe it, and I remember that I must have watched that. I can't say how many times I watched it. That it was whenever I had a free moment, but it really was something that became a part of when I think about my transition from Nigeria to the UK. So I really connect those two, but it's always stayed as a really significant, significant part of my journey, funnily enough.
Yeah.
But also, it was very reflective of what was going on, because it was all about transition, change, and shift. And as someone is a very fixed person at times, that it has been quite it's been quite helpful to reflect on that, actually.
Yeah.
I know, so I think it's that one. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that word anchor. It sounds
Yeah.
like it's really pivotal for
Mm.
who we see now. What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
Oh, so a saying I'd live by is say yes to it if it scares you, because I think some of the most interesting job opportunities, maybe life opportunities and trips, also have come from a. Oh, that sounds a bit. It sounds a bit scary or sounds a bit unexpected, but then it's been a real opportunity to step into something. Um, Something that I would put in the bin. I think it's when we check in with each other and people say, "How are you getting on?" or "How's
Mm.
work?" and people go with always say it's busy.
Mm.
Because I always feel that saying the word busy has kind of lost a bit of, or it's busy or works quite a bit. It's lost kind of meaning of what that actually is. But I feel like if I could get rid of that and say, when we're talking about work, if we can't say it's busy, what would we say, or what would we put in there? I think that we might have a bit more of a honest reflection of how we're finding things. So
Yeah.
actually, that's one for me. That would say, if we could not use that phrase.
Straight in the bin. Straight in the
Yeah.
bin. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
Well, I feel like South Africa felt like an amazing adventure, to be honest. If I think about somewhere that I went to, but if I think about a life adventure for me, has been, I think it is really the stepping into myself of the last, well, it's probably been about 8 years or so now, but really stepping into that and taking some I think really brave jumps. So I would say the stepping into the I need to go on this journey to better understand my previous experiences to help, anchor me and also ground me. But also, I need to learn from some of the difficulties that I've
Mm.
experienced to then have, yes, there's a resilience part, but also think about things I wouldn't do anymore, which have helped me get to the point around where I talked about boundaries and really advocating for myself, but also having the importance and focus on myself. I think, to me, those things have been really, really important. And I think I would like to tie into that. What's been a really big part of that, probably in the last 2, 3 years, has been around my therapy journey. As a result, so bit long-winded in terms of my answer, but I think it's important because actually, if I think about what has been a constant support in being able to unlock some of those things or really have some important learnings, it's being able to have that embedded into what I'm doing, but also have the bravery to say, I'm doing this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so vulnerable with that as well. What three words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
Um, I, 3 words. I would say depth, depth. There's depth to my story being number one. And I would say word number two would be fierce. I
Ooh.
think there's a lot of ferocity to my story, and the the final word I would go for, so depth, fierce, and I would say it sounds like a boring word, but I would go with adaptable because I think that if I think about all the things that I've had to do in some of the things that I've talked about has just required just this. You've got to switch, or you've got to keep moving, or you've got to change your context. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get through to your next transition. So I think, yeah,
Yeah.
adaptable.
There's a real strength to adaptable
Mm.
when you think about it, and particularly in the context of your story.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's fast forward a little bit. What
Hmm.
exciting things do you have coming up?
So got some travel coming up in the summer. I'm looking forward to that. Actually, got travel next week. I go to Berlin for a few days. Really excited about that.
Nice. Love Berlin.
But I think I'm excited about some more summer travel and having a period of perhaps there's more focus on being away from the UK. I think it's good for the soul.
For sure, especially right now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. So
Yeah.
I think definitely, if I think about some of those things for sure. But I think when I look at what is coming for me personally in the future, I think that I definitely I'm looking at how to put down more roots, and so me and my partner, which is really exciting and a great, and I think fills me with a lot of yeah, just I think it's just a lot of joy and thinking about that, but also I think for me just the I think the feelings around what is possible in the in the in that space, because I think what I have been, I'd say what has been quite probably challenging over the last few years, it's been very focused around, you know, change, adaptability, but also I would say now, no, I can't think of a particular part of my life that is the same now. If I go back about 3 years, apart from where I live. So I am looking forward to something which does feel like I can put a bit down, put more roots down, but also being able to kind of step into that more in partnership. So that would be really
Nice.
cool.
That's beautiful. What brings you joy? I imagine some of that brings you joy.
Oh yeah, so absolutely. Yes. I I would be remiss not to talk about my Chihuahua Ife. So she is, so Ife is a Yoruba word. It means love. And she's 4 now. She'll be 5 in August. Time does fly. But yeah, she brings me, I'd say, so much joy. And her, and I'd say she's the best dog. Not biased at all, but she just is. But just I think, yeah, time with her and just space and time with her brings me
Yeah.
lots of joy. But I think as well, being able to, as you said, have the space to spend time with, yeah, so spending time with obviously Adelaide as well is, yeah, I feel like I'm just having a wonderful time and feel very fortunate to be able to experience that.
Oh, it's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. What takeaways do you have for anyone listening wanting to carve out a career in inclusion?
Or I think that it is in terms of in terms of takeaways, it's a really challenging time to be in this space. It really is, and I think that now more than ever, you have to be the one that is going to say the thing that no one else will. And I think in the past we've probably said that in a way that wasn't so pressing or urgent like it is now. And I think for me that is so important. And if you feel like that is not something that is going to be part of what you do, that to me feels so significant, so important in the times we are. And I think the only other thing that I would say around a takeaway is around making sure that you have the part of your inclusion work or the part of your setup that is you're looking after you. So whether that's through you've got your support systems that you go to when you've had, a really difficult day, or you're just really feeling overwhelmed about, having to, if it's sharing your own lived experience or trying to navigate, a really challenging space, that you've got those support systems. And then you've got the things that do anchor you, because I think that without having that, it's incredibly tough.
Yeah, yeah, it's challenging and it can be lonely sometimes as well, especially when you are putting your
Mhm.
head above the parapet and speaking out in when you're the only one saying it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mm.
So equally, there's a bit of the resilience of sometimes saying the thing that no one else will might leave you feeling
Yeah,
a little bit isolated too.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely can happen. Yeah, but it's worth it. It's worth it, and we
it's
need to. It's
absolutely
worth it, and we need to do it right now, right?
it's absolutely worth it, because I think the thing that is certainly part of I would say my own the final point I will make around the thinking about navigating the inclusion space is, if something doesn't feel if it doesn't feel true to me or authentic to me, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you
Damn right.
have to be that, because people will see through it, or it might come across in the way that feels a bit disingenuous to what you're trying to do. So you have to also operate in the space of what feels. I know author people talk about it in the context of authenticity, but I just think what feels true to you. And if you can't stand in that, perhaps you're not the right person to be in that moment.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a bit hard thing to swallow sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah. My final question for you, Tolu, is this: do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
Words of wisdom
Or encouragement?
or encouragement. I'll go with encouragement rather than wisdom. You will get there. I think you will get there, because I think that sometimes what we might focus on when we are really struggling is looking if we look ahead and then we look up and it looks incredibly far away or looks unachievable, rather than perhaps looking either side to where you are. And I wouldn't even necessarily encourage looking backwards, but just looking exactly where you are and actually thinking, where I am is not where I was yesterday. So actually it's a mark of progress.
Yeah.
And if you keep looking in that way each and every day, there's some progress made. You're gonna get there. You will get there. So I think, to me, that's really important.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me and sharing your origin story. I love that I get to see you quite often. I get to work with you, but this was really special. Thank you so much, and thank you for the way you show up.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've had a good time.
Absolute pleasure. I'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Depth, fierce, and adaptable. Those are the three words that Tolu used to describe her and her origin story, and I really, really feel all of them for her. Reflecting that really big, deep reflection of feeling 12 and knowing that things would get better, knowing that she would be able to escape the situation that she was in, be that at home, be that those feelings of otherness and those early experiences of racism, and just knowing at that age, at 12, that it would get better. That was a real standout moment in this conversation for me. Um, hearing Tolu talk about her journey into DEI was beautiful, and kind of that knowing that change could happen, but not quite knowing how to get there, and not realizing that moment, until she was kind of like in an empowering way challenged on it, and the pivotal moment that has shaped the Tolu that we know and love now. And I really admire her firm insistence and commitment to equality and diversity. And when she said, when talking about discrimination and inclusion, not on my watch. And that really says so much about her passion, and what she stands by. Um, and yeah, just those soft moments as well. Talking about her love of South Africa, her travel with Adelaide, and with South Africa, talking, her love of TV, the TV soaps out there, and the beauty of the representation, the different languages and cultures, and hearing her talk about that, and the importance of savoring and appreciate moments, even the challenging moments, but particularly doing things when you want to do them, doing things when you're ready. As Tolu said, she could have started the new year in January the 1st, like everyone else did, but she decided to start her year a bit later and go traveling at the start of the year. And I think that is shows her determination to maintain her boundaries, her self-care, and prioritizing herself and joy. And I think that's so important for us to remember right now when things do feel relentless. The beautiful moment where Tolly reflects on the fact that she's grown into someone that would have protected her as a child. And I do think that was it's such a beautiful, poignant thing to consider, especially during Pride Month. Tolu, love spending this time with you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Please do rate, like, subscribe, comment. Let's get these conversations out there, get loads of people listening to them. Stay tuned for more amazing guests on Pause and Rewind, and see you soon. Cheers.